The Galactic Council chamber floated above the clouds of Zithron Prime, a shining structure of glass and gold, where the most powerful alien races gathered to decide the fate of lesser worlds. Thousands of delegates shimmered in their seats, their voices echoing through the hall in a dozen languages. But today, something strange appeared on the Council's long-range network, a faint, old-style SOS signal coming from a distant corner of the galaxy. Source: Sol System, the AI translator announced. The name caused brief confusion. Most council members blinked in surprise, whispering among themselves, Sol? That was the system of the extinct species, humans. A soft laugh came from a scaled delegate of the Vurok Empire. Impossible. Humans died out centuries ago. Their world was a death planet. No one could live there for long. Another alien, tall and crystalline, tapped its claws on the table. Still, the signal is clear. This is Earth. Request assistance. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then laughter followed. Dozens of voices, sneers, and mocking tones filled the air. The council chair, a towering being with glowing red eyes, leaned forward. A cry for help from a dead species. How amusing. Perhaps their ghosts are calling us. The laughter grew louder. Screens across the chamber replayed the broken SOS. It was weak, distorted, human voices speaking in old Terran language. This is Earth. Emergency broadcast. We need aid. Some younger delegates had never even heard human speech before. They found it crude and strange. What kind of species sends such weak signals? One asked. Pathetic, but not everyone laughed. Near the back of the chamber sat an old grey-skinned alien named Thalon, an archivist of the Council's ancient wars. His eyes darkened as the signal played again. Do not mock this, he said quietly. The last time those words were spoken. Entire fleets burned. No one listened. The council chair raised his arm, silencing the room. We will record the signal and archive it. Earth no longer exists. This matter is closed. Yet even as he spoke, the signal repeated, louder this time, more stable. The voice changed tone. This is Earth, if anyone can hear this. We are not alone. Repeat, we are not alone. The chamber fell silent again. Strange, muttered one technician. The signal's power just increased by 70%. How? The chair demanded. It came from a dead system. Across the Council's star maps, the Sol system flickered to life. Long silent beacons reactivated. Deep space probes, dormant for centuries, suddenly began transmitting data. Thalon felt a chill crawl through him. They are waking up. Who? A delegate asked. The humans. Laughter tried to rise again, but faltered. The technician spoke, voice trembling. There's movement near old Earth space. Unknown ships detected at the edge of the Orion Gate. Configuration. Unknown. Pirates, someone suggested. Too organized, the technician replied. Their formations are precise, military level. The chair leaned closer to the display. How many ships? Too many to count, the council erupted in disbelief. That's impossible. Earth's colonies were wiped out. Valen stood, voice shaking. You fools. The Deathworlders do not die. They adapt. But the others ignored him again. They activated defense satellites and sent drones toward the approaching signal. Moments later, the drones went dark. The technician's screen flashed red. All scout units destroyed. Destroyed by what? Unknown weapons. No visual data. Panic rippled through the room. The council chair slammed his staff against the floor. Compose yourselves. No ancient ghost fleet can threaten the Galactic Council. Thalon whispered, That's what they said last time. The room fell into uneasy silence. Some delegates began searching the archives for human records, ancient wars, forgotten battles. They found fragments of history, the siege of Varlon, the burning of the Epsilon Gate, the fall of Etheria. All carried one name, humanity. They were few, Thalon said, but they fought like no other. Their planet made them strong, a world of storms, beasts, and endless struggle. They called it Earth, the death world. To them, war was not tragedy. It was nature. Suddenly the chamber lights flickered. Communication feeds went silent one by one. The technician turned pale. Something is jamming the Council's network. On the main screen, a shadow appeared, a massive shape blocking the stars. One ship, then another, and another. Soon, dozens filled the space around Zithron Prime. Each ship carried a symbol, a blue and white flag, scarred by battle. The same emblem recorded in the Council's oldest war files. "The Terran fleet," Thalen whispered. "They have returned." The chair tried to speak, but his voice broke. "Send a transmission. Identify them." The technician's hands trembled as he opened a communication line. Static filled the speakers. Then through the noise, a human voice answered. "This is Fleet Admiral Mason of the Terran Unity. We received your response to our SOS signal." The council chamber froze. Mason's tone hardened. "You mocked it." Gasps filled the hall. The alien leaders exchanged terrified glances. The voice continued, calm and cold. "We sent that signal not for help, but to see who was still listening." And then the transmission ended. Outside the chamber, the night sky burned with the light of engines. Hundreds of human warships emerged from hyperspace, forming a silent wall of steel and fire. The Galactic Council had laughed at a distress call. Now they faced the fleet that sent it. The chamber fell into complete silence. Only the faint hum of the transmission remained, echoing through the Council's grand hall like a warning from the past. The old archivist looked up at the burning horizon and whispered the words every alien feared to hear again. "The Deathworlders have returned, and somewhere, across the void, Earth listened, quiet, patient, and ready." The Galactic Council chamber remained in stunned silence. The air was thick with disbelief and fear. The holographic image of the Terran fleet still floated above the center platform. Hundreds of steel-gray warships forming a perfect grid across the skies. No one dared speak. Admiral Mason's last words echoed in every delegate's mind. "We sent that signal not for help, but to see who was still listening." The words felt like thunder in the quiet hall. The chair of the council, Lord Zikar, finally broke the silence. "Find out where that transmission originated," he barked. The technician stammered. "Sir, the transmission came from multiple sources. It wasn't one ship, it came from all of them." A chill swept through the chamber. "How is that possible?" demanded a delegate from the Shira Dominion. "Even our most advanced fleets cannot synchronize across such vast distances." Thalen, the old archivist, stepped forward slowly. "Because they are not bound by the same rules as us. Humanity's coordination was always unnatural." The others turned toward him, confused. He continued, voice quiet but heavy. "Do you even know why we called them Deathworlders? It wasn't because of their planet alone. It was because their world made them fight together perfectly. Their chaos breeds unity." Many delegates looked uneasy. "That's ancient myth," one scoffed. Thalen met his gaze. "Then explain what you're seeing right now." The hologram zoomed out to show an even larger picture. The Terran fleet wasn't alone. Across neighboring systems, new signatures appeared, ships emerging from subspace, silent and massive. Entire constellations flickered as human fleets took position. The chair's voice trembled for the first time. This cannot be real," the technician replied softly. "It's very real, sir." Before anyone could respond, the main comms line activated again. The screen flickered and an image appeared. Not of Admiral Mason this time, but of a much older man. His face was pale, lined with scars, his eyes sharp and unreadable. Behind him stood soldiers in black armor with blue insignias. "This is Grand Marshal Elias of the Terran Unity," he said calmly. "To the Galactic Council, we have no quarrel with your people. But your laughter has been heard." Gasps echoed through the chamber. He continued, voice low but firm. "We sent the SOS to measure your hearts, to see if the galaxy still remembers compassion." He paused. "You failed." The transmission ended again. Panic spread like wildfire. Delegates shouted over each other, demands, fears, questions. "They can't mean war. It's a bluff. We have defense fleets. Activate the planetary shield." Valen's voice cut through the noise. "You still do not understand. This is not an invasion. It's a reckoning. Outside, the first human ships began descending toward the nearby moons. No weapons were fired, not yet. They moved in perfect silence like shadows across a starfield. The Council called for emergency military command. Admiral Sarin of the Vurok Empire, proud and confident, stood before the room. My fleet will confront them. The Council will see that no primitive Deathworlder can challenge us again. He stormed out, his scales gleaming under the light. Thailand shook his head. Foolish pride. That's what killed us last time. Moments later, the Council screens showed Sarin's fleet, moving toward the human formation. The aliens' ships outnumbered the humans 2-1, armed with plasma cannons and ion torpedoes. The Council watched, whispering nervously. Sarin's voice came through. "This is Admiral Sarin of the Vurok Defense Armada. Identify yourselves or be destroyed." No reply. He sneered. "Very well, fire!" Dozens of plasma blasts streaked through space, striking the front of the human formation. Explosions flashed, then vanished instantly. The light faded. The Terran ship stood untouched. "Impossible!" Someone shouted. "Their shields absorbed it all." A moment later, a single human ship moved forward. Black hull, no markings, only a faint blue glow beneath its armor. It fired one pulse, one. The entire Vurok fleet disappeared from the radar. The Council chamber went silent. Even the hum of the lights seemed to fade. The technician's voice cracked. "No debris, no wreckage. Nothing remains," a delegate whispered. "They erased them." The chair slammed his staff again. "Enough, this is war. Mobilize every fleet." But Thalen shook his head slowly. "No, this is judgment. You mocked their call for mercy. Now you will beg for it." The Council's outer colonies began sending distress calls. Reports of human ships appearing over their skies, scanning but not attacking. Civilians watched as massive Terran warships hovered silently observing. "They're not destroying," a report said. "They're watching." Fear turned to confusion. Why didn't they strike? Why wait? Thalen understood. They're letting us feel what they once felt, helplessness. Mocked, alone and afraid, the younger aliens could barely speak. Why would they return after all these years? The morning sky of Zithron Prime glowed red as thousands of eyes looked upward. The once calm heavens were now filled with moving shadows, ships so vast they blocked out the sun. The Galactic Council's capital world, proud and untouchable for centuries, now trembled beneath the silent presence of the Terran fleet. Citizens gathered in the streets, staring at the strange vessels above. Some prayed, others cursed, but no one dared to look away. The air itself seemed heavy, as if space had bent under the weight of something ancient and unstoppable. Inside the council chamber, the delegates shouted over one another. "We must respond! They're violating our borders. Activate the planetary shield." The chair of the council slammed his hand on the table. "Do it!" Energy surged across the city. From horizon to horizon, bright arcs of light connected as the shield dome formed. A shimmering wall of protection wrapped the planet, reflecting the sunlight in brilliant colors. For a brief moment, the council felt safe again, but above the atmosphere, the human fleet did not move. No weapons fired. No communication. Just silent observation. "They're waiting," Thalen said quietly. The chair glared at him. "Waiting for what?" Thalen's eyes did not leave the screen. "For us to make the first mistake." The technician's console beeped. "Incoming transmission and from the Terran flagship. Put it through." The holographic image of Admiral Mason appeared once again. His uniform was dark, simple and clean, the kind of design that carried quiet authority. His voice was calm. "This is Admiral Mason of the Terran Unity. We request no harm to your civilians. We come not as conquerors, but as witnesses." "Witnesses to what?" the chair demanded, his voice shaking. "To your choices," Mason replied. "You mocked a call for mercy. You turned away when we reached out. We sent that signal to test the heart of the galaxy. We found it cold." The chair slammed his fist. "We owe you nothing, Deathworlder. This is our galaxy now." For a long moment, Mason said nothing. His image just stared through the council's grand hall. Then he spoke slowly, like a verdict. "You may rule the galaxy, but never forget, humanity made it bleed first." The hologram flickered off. Suddenly, alarms blared. On the outer orbit, a squadron of impatient alien fighters had launched without permission. They rushed toward the Terran ships, weapons hot. "Recall them!" the chair ordered. "Now!" Too late. The alien fighters fired dozens of plasma bolts. The explosions lit the void for seconds and then stopped. The human fleet didn't fire back. Instead, the plasma fire simply disappeared, swallowed by invisible barriers around the ships. A single Terran vessel moved forward, black hull covered in faint white markings. It fired once. A thin blue beam struck the alien formation. Every ship froze mid-flight, engines dead. Then silently, they fell toward the planet, burning up in the shield's atmosphere. Gasps filled the chamber. "What kind of weapon is that?" One delegate cried. Thalen answered softly, "Not a weapon. A lesson." The chair turned toward him. "A lesson?" Thalen nodded. "They could have destroyed us in seconds. They didn't. They're showing us restraint." Outside, a deep rumble echoed through the sky as the Terran ships began shifting position. Massive carriers unfolded like metal petals, revealing something beneath, rows upon rows of smaller crafts, drones, and orbital platforms. They moved with eerie precision, aligning over the council world as if choreographed. The technician whispered, "They're forming a net." "What kind of net?" "A planetary grid. It's surrounding us." The chair's voice broke. "They're trapping us here." "Maybe not," Thalen murmured. "Maybe they're containing something worse than this." Thalen pointed at the screen. "Themselves." As the hours passed, the sky turned darker. The Terran ships absorbed sunlight, their hulls reflecting no color. Cities across the planet dimmed as if a shadow had swallowed the sun. News feeds across the galaxy broadcasted the scene. Millions of species watching in silence as the Deathworlders surrounded the Council world. In one transmission, a reporter whispered, "They don't need to speak. Their silence is their war cry." Elsewhere, alien fleets across the nearby sectors began retreating. Panic spread faster than light. Entire empires sealed their borders, fearing they might be next. The name Deathworlders returned to every network, trending across galactic space, yet still no attack came. Instead, at sunset, one ship broke formation and descended through the planet's atmosphere. It landed quietly outside the Council city, a black vessel with the old Earth flag marked on its wings. The ground shook only slightly as it touched down. Guards surrounded it, weapons raised, terrified. The ship's ramp lowered. A single human stepped out. He wore no armor, only a dark uniform and an old symbol of the Terran Unity on his chest. His hair was silver, his eyes bright blue, his expression unreadable. The guards froze. None dared shoot. The human walked forward slowly, stopping before the council hall's grand entrance. He spoke softly, but his voice carried across the plaza. "You called this place the heart of the galaxy. Let's see if it still beats." He raised a small device, a simple projector, and placed it on the ground. It activated, sending a holographic image into the sky. The image showed Earth, a live green ocean shining, cities glowing brighter than ever. Every being watching the broadcast gasped. Earth had survived, not dead, not forgotten, evolved. The human looked up at the hologram, then at the aliens surrounding him. "We sent a call for help to see who would answer," he said. "Only one kind of species laughs at suffering, those who think themselves gods. We came to remind you, even gods can bleed." He turned back toward his ship, leaving the device behind. The holographic Earth kept spinning in the night sky, brighter than any star. Inside the council chamber, Thalen whispered, "They don't seek revenge. They seek remembrance." The chair slumped in his seat. "Then what happens next?" Thalen looked up at the fleet, now burning red against the horizon. "Next," he said softly, "the sky burns." As darkness fell, the first Terran warship fired into the empty void, not at the planet but upward, releasing a bright beam into space. It wasn't destruction. It was a signal. All across the galaxy, hundreds of hidden Terran fleets answered back, lighting the stars one by one. The galaxy looked up that night and realized the truth. Humanity was not gone. They had never left. Thalen turned to them, eyes dim. Because the galaxy forgot. We forgot who they were. We forgot that humans never send warnings for nothing. He gazed at the main display, where the largest Terran ship hovered above the Council's homeworld like a silent god. Long ago, he said, when the first Council warred against them, humanity's final message was simple. If we ever return, it won't be as victims. And now, that prophecy had come true. The sky above Zitheron Prime filled with fire as the Terran fleet formed a massive symbol. The old Terran insignia, visible from the surface. Every planet in the system received the same message. We are the children of Earth. We heard your laughter. Now hear our silence. The broadcast played across the galaxy. Empires trembled. Colonies shut down communications. Every being who mocked the SOS felt dread in their bones. The Council called for another meeting, but most members didn't show up. Some fled to outer systems. Some simply vanished. Thalen stood alone in the empty hall, watching the glowing insignia in the sky. So it begins, he whispered. The Deathworlders do not come for war. They come to remind the galaxy what it means to fear. He looked toward the stars, where Earth once lay hidden, and said softly, "Welcome back, humanity." The stars flickered in answer, cold, bright, and merciless. The night above Zitheron Prime no longer belonged to the stars. It belonged to the humans. Thousands of Terran ships hovered like silent giants, their hulls gleaming faintly in the light of the planet's cities. Across every capital, every colony, and every moon, the same image was broadcast, the blue and white insignia of the Terran Unity. Inside the council chamber, fear had turned to quiet awe. None of the delegates spoke now. Every sound seemed too loud, every breath too heavy. On the main screen, the hologram of the planet Earth continued to rotate, a symbol of life, not ruin. The chair stared at it in disbelief. "This cannot be," he whispered. "Earth was supposed to be dead." Thalen, standing beside him, spoke softly. "Deathworlds rarely die. They wait." Before anyone could respond, the holograms flickered again. This time a human face appeared, younger than Mason or Elias, with a scar across his cheek and steel-grey eyes that seemed to look straight into the souls of those watching. He stood on the bridge of a colossal warship, the TNS Vengeance, its dark corridors humming with quiet energy. "This is Captain Aaron Vale of the Terran Unity," he said calmly. "To the Galactic Council and all who hear this broadcast, you were tested, and you failed." A ripple of shock moved through the chamber. "We sent out a call, not for help but for hope. We wanted to know if the galaxy had changed since the old wars, if compassion had replaced arrogance." He paused, his gaze hardening. "Instead, you mocked the call of the weak. You turned mercy into a joke," his tone sharpened. "You laughed at the SOS from Earth. Now hear the message it carried beneath the noise. We are awake." Gasps filled the council chamber. The old historian Thalen's heart pounded. He had read stories about the humans' old broadcasts, messages filled with courage, pain, and impossible hope. This one felt different. It was colder, sharper. The human captain continued, voice like thunder wrapped in calm. "Your ancestors called us monsters. You named our homeworld a death world. You were right. Earth kills the unworthy, but it also forges the impossible. We built ships from storms, cities beneath fire, and hearts that do not break." He leaned forward. "We reached out across the stars to see if there was still kindness out here. You showed us cruelty. So now we show you consequence." The image shifted. Behind the captain, screens showed entire council colonies, not destroyed, but surrounded by Terran ships. Civilians stood on alien streets looking up, watching human drones deliver supplies, repair systems, and restore power grids that had failed during the panic. The chair stared. "They're helping them," Thalen smiled faintly. "They don't conquer. They correct?" The broadcast continued. "We are not here for revenge," Captain Vale said. "We are here for balance. When the strong aug at the cost of cruelty, someone must remind them." He turned his gaze toward the camera, as if speaking directly to every world watching. Tell your people this: humanity does not seek your surrender. We demand your memory. Remember this day, when you looked up and saw the sky burn, not with war, but with warning. The hologram vanished. Silence filled the hall again, broken only by the soft hum of the planetary shield still holding above. The delegates were pale and shaking. Some whispered prayers to their gods. Others just stared at the image of Earth still spinning above them. Then the technician spoke quietly. "There's another message, sir. From the humans again?" The chair asked. The technician nodded. "But not from their fleet, from Earth itself." The chamber darkened. A new hologram flickered to life. This time, it was not a human officer or soldier. It was a young woman standing before a massive blue ocean. Her hair moved with the wind, and her voice carried a warmth that filled the entire hall. "To the Galactic Council," she said gently. "We remember you." The delegates froze. "Centuries ago you watched us burn. You called our world cursed. You sent no aid, no message, no compassion. We learned, we rebuilt, and we rose again, not to destroy you, but to prove that even in silence life endures." Her expression hardened, just slightly. "We forgive your fear, but we do not forget your laughter." As she spoke, the hologram shifted to show millions of humans, men, women, children, standing across the continents of a restored Earth. Great cities rose from crystal oceans. Giant spaceports reached into the sky. Humanity had not just survived. They had ascended. "You mocked our SOS," the woman said, "but it carried no cry for help. It was an invitation to witness what you could have become." Her final words were soft but chilling. "We are the children of the death world, and the galaxy will never laugh at us again." The hologram faded. The council delegates sat frozen, unable to speak. Some cried quietly. Others trembled, realizing that history had just changed in front of them. Thailand finally spoke. "That was not a threat. That was a declaration of return." The chair sank into his seat. "Return of what?" "Of balance," Thalen replied. Outside, the Terran fleet began to move again. Their engines ignited like small suns, lighting up the night. The massive ships turned away from the planet, reforming their perfect formation. "Are they leaving?" the technician asked. Thailand shook his head. "No, they're reminding us that they choose peace." Moments later, one final message appeared on every galactic network, from the smallest outpost to the largest capital world. Simple, clear, and terrifyingly beautiful. "The Deathworlders have spoken. We came in peace, but we never come twice." As the fleet disappeared into hyperspace, their blue trails lingered in the blackness like glowing scars. Across the galaxy, billions watched in silence. Some saw hope, some saw fear, all saw truth. The galaxy had forgotten Earth, but Earth had remembered everything. The stars above Zitheron Prime had returned to calm. The Terran fleet was gone, their vast ships vanishing into the void as silently as they had appeared. Yet the peace they left behind was not peace at all. It was fear wrapped in silence. Every world that had mocked the SOS signal now trembled under the weight of guilt and dread. Every leader who had laughed felt the echo of that human voice. "We came not for help, but to see who was listening." Inside the Grand Council Hall, the chair and the remaining delegates met once more. Many seats were empty now. Some members had fled to distant sectors. Others had resigned or disappeared. The once mighty council now looked like frightened children trying to rebuild their courage. "Are they truly gone?" one delegate asked. The chair rubbed his temples. "Scouts report no human presence within 100 systems. They left as quickly as they came." Thailand stood quietly at the center of the chamber. His old eyes stared at the hologram of Earth, still hovering in the air. "No," he said softly. "They never leave completely. They watch." The chair's patience broke. "Watch? For what?" "What more could they possibly want?" Thalen turned. "Not want, judge. They came to see the truth of the galaxy. They saw it, and now they will decide what survives it." Before anyone could respond, the chamber lights flickered. The main communication grid activated itself. The room went cold as a familiar insignia appeared in the air, the blue and white crest of the Terran Unity. The chair's voice trembled. Open the channel. The holographic image of Admiral Mason appeared once more, his face calm, unreadable. Behind him, rows of human officers stood in silence. "Galactic Council," he began, "we have observed your worlds, your actions, your reactions. What we found confirms what we feared. Arrogance without accountability, power without compassion." The council members sat frozen. "When humanity fell," Mason continued, "the galaxy rejoiced. You called our extinction a relief. You labeled our world a death world, and yet you learned nothing from it." The chair tried to speak, but no sound came out. "Our return is not conquest," Mason said. "It is correction." The image behind him changed, showing dozens of alien planets, each surrounded by small Terran vessels. No bombs, no soldiers, only drones restoring balance. On one world, humans were rebuilding destroyed forests. On another, they were shutting down war factories that produced illegal weapons. The message was clear: humanity was enforcing peace through control. Mason continued, his tone hard as iron. "You laughed at our call for help. You mocked mercy. So now you will live under its shadow. The Terran Unity will oversee your treaties, your borders, your wars. The age of cruelty is over. The Deathworlders will not allow another galaxy built on mockery." Gasps and protests erupted in the chamber. "You can't control us. We are the Council. This is tyranny." Mason raised a hand, and the noise stopped instantly. "Tyranny? You mistake discipline for tyranny. You had your chance to rule with compassion. You chose laughter. We choose order." The hologram zoomed in on his face, calm, sharp, and utterly confident. "We are not your enemies. But if you force us to be, you will not survive it." The image faded, leaving the chamber in darkness once again. For several minutes, no one spoke. Then the technician whispered, "They've transmitted something else." "An encoded file." The chair frowned. "What kind of file?" The technician's hands trembled as he decoded it. "A list, sir." "A list?" "Yes. The planets that mocked the SOS signal." The chamber went silent. The screen displayed hundreds of names, systems, colonies, worlds, each marked with a red symbol. Every delegate felt their stomach twist. Their worlds were there. A moment later, a second message appeared beneath it. "For every world that mocked, one will burn, not by our hand, but by your own." The chair shouted, "What does that mean?" Thaylen's voice was low, steady. "It means they will make us destroy ourselves." He was right. Across the galaxy, chaos erupted. The moment the message spread, fear infected every world. Accusations began, wars reignited, old rivalries returned. The same arrogance and hatred that once mocked humanity now turned inward. Planets sealed borders, fleets mobilized, and panic swept through the stars. It was as if the galaxy had turned against itself, without a single human firing a shot. Thaylen watched the madness unfold on the central screen and whispered, "They have shown us our reflection." The chair stared at him. "Can they really control all this?" Thaylen nodded. "They don't need to. We're doing it for them." Meanwhile, far from the Council, on the edge of known space, the Terran fleet waited in silence. Admiral Mason stood on the bridge of his flagship, gazing out at the stars. Behind him, Captain Vale approached. "They're tearing themselves apart," Vale said quietly. "You were right, they never learned." Mason didn't look away from the viewport. "We gave them a chance to prove their humanity. They failed. Should we intervene?" Vale asked. Mason shook his head. "No, let them burn their arrogance. When the flames die, we will rebuild what's left." He turned toward the command console and gave a single order. "Deploy the beacons." Across the galaxy, small silver devices activated, invisible to most sensors. They sent signals into the hearts of worlds at war, disrupting weapons systems, freezing engines, disabling nuclear cores. Humanity was not destroying the galaxy. They were disabling it, stripping it of its power to harm. Back on Zitheron Prime, the chair watched in shock as his own defense fleet shut down mid-flight. "What's happening?" Thaylen smiled faintly. "The reckoning. The Deathworlders don't conquer. They correct." A final transmission appeared in the sky. Not from Mason this time, but from that same young woman who had once spoken beside Earth's ocean. Her voice was calm, even kind. "We do not hate you," she said. "We only remind you what you became when no one could stop you. This is not punishment. It is cleansing." Her image faded into the blue glow of Earth's horizon. Thalen looked up at it, his voice trembling with a strange peace. "Perhaps they were never our enemies," he said. "Perhaps they were our teachers. The galaxy burned, but only the arrogance, the cruelty, and the pride of those who thought themselves gods." In the silent aftermath, as fleets floated powerless and planets stood still, the stars reflected a new kind of order, one born not from domination, but from understanding force through fear, and somewhere beyond the rim of known space, the human fleet watched quietly, their engines dim, their signals silent. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt something it had forgotten: humility. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy was silent. The constant hum of trade routes, the chaos of wars, the endless chatter of politics, all of it had vanished. Across thousands of systems, ships floated motionless. Cities stood without power, and every being looked toward the same sky that had once mocked the humans' distress signal. Now, those same skies glowed faintly blue. The Terran beacons pulsed like living hearts scattered through space, each one humming with invisible energy. They didn't destroy, they restrained. The galaxy had not been conquered by fire or invasion, but by stillness. Inside the broken Grand Council hall, the surviving delegates sat in stunned quiet. The proud chair of the council, Lord Zikar, now seemed smaller, older, his once fiery eyes dimmed with exhaustion. Around him, screens flickered with images of chaos turned calm. Fleets disabled, riots fading, planetary weapons frozen in orbit. "They stopped everything," a trembling delegate whispered. "Every system, every weapon, all frozen." Thalen, the old archivist, stood near the shattered window, gazing up at the faint shimmer of the beacons above. His voice was low but steady. "They gave us silence because we never listened." The chair turned sharply. "You speak as if you admire them." Thalen's eyes softened. "I respect them. They could have destroyed us completely, but they didn't. They want us to understand." "Understand what?" The chair snapped. "That power is not control," Thalen replied. "Power is responsibility." Before the chair could answer, the entire chamber dimmed. The holographic network, still half-functional, activated on its own. Once again, the symbol of the Terran Unity filled the room. Every surviving planet in the galaxy received the same message simultaneously. The image flickered, revealing Admiral Mason and Captain Vale standing side by side on the bridge of the TNS Eternal Resolve. Behind them, stars glimmered like sparks scattered in a void. "To the Galactic Council and all surviving civilizations," Mason began. "This is not the end. This is the reset." He paused, letting the words echo through the hall. For too long, arrogance ruled the stars. The strong devoured the weak, and compassion became a myth. We watched, we waited, and when the time came, we returned. Captain Vale stepped forward. His voice was calm, commanding, almost gentle. "You feared extinction, but we offer survival. The beacons will remain active for 50 standard years. During that time, no fleet will fire a weapon of mass destruction. No species will enslave another. No government will declare war. The galaxy will rest." A murmur spread through the council chamber. 50 years, an eternity for empires built on conquest. "This era," Vale continued, "is not ours. It is yours, to prove that you can exist without hate. If you fail, we will return." The message paused, and Mason's eyes met the camera, cold and unwavering. "We are the children of the Deathworld. We learned peace through pain, mercy through loss. If we must teach you the same lesson, we will." The hologram faded. Outside, the beacons flared brighter, sending ripples of blue light through the night sky. Across every world, weapons powered down completely, and communications stabilized for the first time in weeks. The warlords, pirates, and dictators who had risen during the chaos now found themselves powerless. The galaxy had entered a forced peace. Thalen turned to the council. The Deathworlders have given us a gift, the chair laughed bitterly. A gift? They've caged us like animals. No, Thalen said. They've given us time to remember what it means to be more than animals. He walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the frightened faces. You all saw their mercy. Do you know how rare that is? We called them monsters, and yet they spared us. Perhaps it is time we stop being the monsters ourselves. Silence followed. The truth in his words was undeniable. In the following weeks, something remarkable began to happen. Without wars or weapons, planets started to rebuild. Former enemies opened trade again. Science and culture replaced conflict. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy began to heal. News feeds, once filled with threats, now showed cooperation. Alien engineers worked side by side to repair ruined colonies. Refugees returned home. Even the poorest worlds received supplies from unknown Terran drones that arrived silently, unloaded crates of medicine and technology, and vanished without a trace. Everywhere, a quiet phrase began to spread. The Deathworlders are watching. It was not spoken with fear anymore, but with respect. Back on Earth, deep within the Sol system, the Terran Council convened for the first time in generations. Great domed cities glowed under the auroras of a restored atmosphere. Humanity had not only survived its exile, it had flourished. Admiral Mason stood before a gathering of leaders, scientists, and veterans. Behind him, a massive window revealed the stars, each one faintly glowing blue from the beacon network. 50 years, he said quietly. That's what we've given them, a young officer asked. And if they fail? Mason looked out at the stars, his reflection merging with the cosmic glow. Then we remind them again. As many times as it takes. The council hall fell silent. Every human in the room knew the truth. The galaxy would never again underestimate them. On the edge of known space, one of the beacons pulsed brighter than the rest. Its signal projected a final message across the galaxy, simple, poetic, and eternal. From the death world came the teachers of mercy. Mock them, and you awaken your own judgment. Learn from them, and you earn your dawn. Back on Zytheron Prime, Thalen watched the words appear across the sky. He smiled faintly, tears in his ancient eyes. They didn't bring an ending, he whispered. They brought a beginning. The chair turned to him, his voice softer than before. Do you think they'll ever trust us again? Thalen shook his head. Not yet, but they've given us the one thing they always valued most, a second chance. He gazed once more at the stars. The beacons shimmered like blue lanterns scattered across eternity. Humanity's final act had not been vengeance, it had been guidance. The galaxy slowly began to turn again, no longer divided by fear, but united by a memory it would never forget. And as the beacons pulsed in the silence of space, one final message whispered across the void. The Deathworlders do not rule, they remind. The galaxy mocked their cry. Now it carries their light.